Hi, this is Wesley Stace, aka John Wesley Harding, with John Broughton on Retrospectives, celebrating 25 years on the air on Casey Radio 97.7 FM.
Okay, just to begin with, do you have an earliest musical memory?
Well, my family's full of musicians, so yeah, lots. My mother's a singer and now a music voice coach and stuff, so it was all music in my family all the time. I don't have a specific earliest one. I remember plunking around on a piano when I was pretty young, but there was just music everywhere. Both of my sisters are singers as well.
Was there any particular point growing up where it started to become apparent to you that music was going to be perhaps a career?
No, not at all. Because everybody was always singing anyway, and I mean, I was actually thinking yesterday while I was walking around Manhattan that it is my normal mode to be whistling variations on a tune. That's my normal. I just realized that yesterday. that is literally how I am at my most relaxed walking down the street, is because I don't notice it, I'm just doing it in my head, but I'll sing a song, maybe by me, maybe by someone else, and I'll start singing in my head or whistling kind of variations on it, and that's how I'll keep myself occupied. I just think music's a big part of my family, but I really fell into making music as a living, and in fact, I was probably the least musical member of my family because I was more interested in playing, football and all kinds of, and being, following rock music and rock bands, and I didn't think that I would really be the one to make a living off music, but because I didn't even pick up the guitar till I was 16 or 17.
All right. Of all your musical influences, would there be one that, in growing up, inspired you most to want to be a songwriter? Well, different people influence different things. I'd say Bob Dylan was probably the spark, as with so many people. Mm. But I'd also say that people like Loudon Wainwright, when I saw him live, and films I saw of Steve Goodman playing, those are very important people because they showed me that, you could make I thought from seeing them that, you could make a solo acoustic show. It didn't have to be a kind of reverential religious event, nor did you have to be the greatest guitar player to do it, really. Mm. People always say, I can't write a song, but basically if you know two chords, you can, because it's not about how you play the chords or what chords you're playing. It's about how you deliver the song. Right. And some people are very good at that, and some people aren't good at all. Now, so it just depends. So I think I'm influenced by different. I couldn't just say Elvis Costello. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah.
It wouldn't make sense, but definitely he was an influence.
Now you say different artists influence you in different ways. Would there be a uniform quality through all the artists that did impress you?
Well, probably not, because I don't know. I mean, I think in every genre of music, there's obviously interesting artists and artists you're not so interested in, and the artists you're not so interested in generally are the ones that kind of play by the rules without breaking them too much. But on the other hand, that can be not at all true, I mean, there's so many great bands that are great bands specifically because they play by all the rules and got it right. Like I think ABBA, or the Carpenters, or Jim Croce, or there's many people I can think of who aren't really Gordon Lightfoot. They're not really radical, but they're just great.
Yeah. I believe your mum was a singing teacher. Did you take lessons from her at all?
No. But she's helped me through a couple of funny things when my voice has been a bit odd. She knows all about breathing, and she knows about, and that's all really important stuff.
Yeah.
So I've never actually had a lesson from her. Well, not a musical one, anyway.
No.
This song's all about when I met Ray Davies.
Going back to your university days, was it a dilemma for you at all to give up your studies and pursue music as a career? Did you go through a personal dilemma there?
No, because what I did was I stayed on with like many people, at the end of my undergraduate years at university, I had a very stark choice, which was begin life and get a job,
or because I didn't have any money. I mean, you know, some people do, and that's nice, but I didn't. Or, you know, stay and do a graduate thing. Keep learning to play the guitar. And so I was doing my PhD, and then suddenly I was, suddenly I was in the world doing gigs, and it just kind of segued into a gig thing after that.
It all just naturally evolved.
Yeah, what's that?
It all just naturally evolved.
It did, yeah. I just got some gigs playing for a friend of mine, and then suddenly somebody asked me to go on the road. It was the least planned musical career of all time, and also just by my name. I mean, anybody who knows me will know that, you know, I'm the least likely person to have a stage name, because I'm very like that I am the person up there on stage. I don't need to, you know, put on some makeup or, you know, metaphorically to get on the stage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So, but I was teaching at the time, or I was, you know, being taught at Cambridge, and I just didn't want anybody to know I was doing it. So my fake name was actually out of a kind of defense mechanism. If somebody had said, you'll be still making music in 12 years, you'll be successful, and you're going to be saddled with the name John Wesley Harding, would you rather have that or your own name? I would have said my own name. But these things happen. Have
you ever thought through the years at any time of switching back?
Yeah, but it's a very complicated thing to do.
Yeah.
To be honest, because however big or small your thing is, that's what you are. And if I suddenly decided to change my name, on every poster it would be, you know, whatever name I chose, formerly known as John Wesley Harding. You know what I mean? That's what it would be on everything. And I mean, who wants that? It's bad, you know. So I think that's the way it would have to be.
Sure.
As I talk to you, I'm trying to encourage my dog to eat her breakfast, but she is... Eat! No, she's looking a bit wistful. Don't know what's wrong with that. Sorry.
It's always a brave move to have your first recording or your first album out as a live one. Was there any particular reason you chose to do that?
Yeah, because I thought it was the most radical, most honest way to present a series of songs. And frankly, I'm very, very happy that many of my fans love that album and think it's great. I can't stand it. I think it should be out there, you know, because I don't think that you should only have things you totally love. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, without giving away any trade secrets, as far as I'm concerned on that album, I hadn't really learned to write songs properly and I hadn't learned to sing them yet. And now now obviously I'm much happier and confident doing what I do, but there's a real nervous energy and anxiety about that record that's fantastic. It doesn't make for pleasant listening for me personally, but you know, I mean, it just sounds like I'd done a lot of speed or something, which of course I hadn't done. But you know, I'm very, what's the word? Somethinged up, hopped up or something. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a very, very interesting, really a pretty brave first record. It got horrible reviews in England at the time. And then when I came over to America and started making my career over here, of course it became the great lost first album.
Yeah.
You know how that always happens. It's so typical, and suddenly everybody wanted it. Nobody could get it. So we put it out, and it got terrific reviews. But in England, when it came out, nobody paid any attention. If they did, they were rude about it.
Do you remember having a great confidence in the material, though, at the time?
Yes, I think I did. But I mean, it's funny because I'm in a similar situation right now, where I'm writing a novel, and I think probably my attitude to my game, you know, that'll be the first thing if it gets published. That'll be the first thing. You know, this novel will be my "It happened one night" of my writing career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was written one night, and I think I kind of am experiencing the same feelings about it as I am about It Happened One Night, which is, yes, there's enough confidence to get up and sing them, but the songs, in a sense, and this thing that I'm writing, are kind of a means to an end, and they're also part of a continuum. I didn't doubt when I made It Happen One Night that the next album would be way better, that the songs would be better, that, you know, and I don't doubt that about this thing that I'm writing too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, it wasn't that I went, wow, these songs are going to change the world. In fact, I was very cynical then, even more cynical than I am now, probably. And I just felt, oh, well, you know, this is the first step on the road to somewhere. But I did think that was a good first step, and I couldn't think of too many people who'd done that before, and it's difficult to think of basic stuff like that no one's done before.
Yeah, it is rare.
Yeah.
And it is a brave move, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I liked it, because I just thought it was said, okay, these people in the audience, they don't know about me. This is kind of what a gig of mine's like, because, of course, it's when you don't have a record out, it's difficult to go somewhere and have people know of you. And it was a very unforgiving audience, really, that night. And I thought that was a good way to present those songs. It was more, I think it was as much an art statement, in a funny way, as anything else, because I just I didn't dress it up or pretend that I was more popular than I was, or that I played with a band and it all sounded like top 10 music, you know what I mean? I just literally taped what I did.
Yeah. What was the main motivating factor behind your relocation to America? Was it always inevitable that you'd go there?
No, but I think that America, in a sense, was bound to like my music more, and thus it has turned out. England, is very fashion-based, and when my first album came out, nobody was playing the acoustic guitar. Only Billy Bragg was playing the acoustic guitar, and he was playing the electric guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He had to dress it up and make it look like solo punk rather than singer-songwriter. And his voice helped, But nobody was doing that. It was nowadays it seems like you could get away with that a bit more. But, 1987, 1988, 89, these were the horrible years of music in England. And I came over to America, having got my deal with Sire, and I put out that album, and it just was obvious that things were going to be more pleasant for me here. And people liked me, and I could make money from doing gigs. I suppose in many ways it was kind of a business decision to relocate here. Whether it was always bound to be true, I don't know. But it's definitely true that America's larger. There are whole styles of music that are always in fashion in America, whatever the NME's talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The NME might be pumping the Strokes this week and Blur last year or whatever, whatever they are. But in America, you can go and play, and have been able to, any time since the 60s, you can go and play a great folk or singer-songwriter gig in every city in America.
Exactly. The work's always there.
The work is always there. And so those places go in and out of fashion because, sometimes they're more in touch with what's happening and sometimes they're less in touch. Like, I think now folk music is undergoing quite a bit of a resurgence, whereas in 1986, 87... the gigs were definitely there, but, I don't think the quality of the people was there. It was just the old people. Now there are new people coming through.
That's right. Have you ever pondered what career your direction may have taken had you stayed in England?
If I'd stayed in England, that's an interesting thought. To be honest, no, I haven't really. That's a funny answer, but no, I haven't. If the answer is what would it have taken, I think it would have been hard for me to make a living through music unless I got a lucky break. All my supporters from the word go were really in America.
Yeah.
I suppose I could have been, Robin Hitchcock did stay in England. And he probably has, kind of exactly the same career that I have, which is that we're more popular in America.
Yeah.
And you can think of other people who stayed in England. And given the air of ease of air transport and stuff, when they're staying up there, then I would say it would probably not be that much different, really.
How do you look back on that time with Sire Records now? Were they supportive of the...
Always. Yeah, in fact, the problem with Sire Records, in a sense, was that they were too supportive. They didn't used to put a lot of money really into making the records, which I think is no bad thing. I never held that against them. And to be honest, I was never one of their massive priorities. They were also dealing with, Madonna and, I don't know, Talking Heads or whoever was Erasure or, Depeche Mode. You couldn't even count all their incredible, influential acts on two hands. But Pretenders, there was always records that were more important than mine.
Mm.
But the two main guys there really liked me and really liked my music, most importantly, and thought it was worth a shot. So they really gave me the time and the patience to make a few albums and, put my heart and soul into them. the irony is, I mean, when I went to make my first album for them, I had no idea what to do in a recording studio at all, so I badly needed a producer. And then the reason that it was a problem that I just mentioned, that they kind of liked me too much, was I reckon my first album was very well poised in America. And the second album is exactly the same as the first album, but with horns. And that's, I think, I mean, ever since then, I've learned that it's a fatal error to do the same thing twice with minor changes. It just doesn't work. You never get it quite as good. The irony, I think the songs on the second side record are better, but I think the production is worse, and that's not an album I listen to with a lot of pleasure, though I think there are some good things on it. And I would say that what I really needed at times like that was a strong A&R hand at Sire. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I really need somebody to go, Wes, think about it. You know, what kind of album do you really want to make? And the album I really wanted to make for my second album was my third album. I wanted to make an album that went away from that kind of Elvis Costello-y drums and bass sound to a more kind of elaborate acoustic sound. And I think if my third album had come out as my second album, my career might have been quite different in a few ways.
Oh, yeah.
And what I really needed, I think I needed a firm hand that I never got, because they really liked what I did, and they were happy to go. I mean, but their reaction to the success, in inverted commas, of the first record was, oh shit, do it again.
Now, you did use some of the guys from Elvis Costello's band in those early days. Were you looking for an established band sound on those recordings rather than a batch of session players?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yes, I was. I mean, I wanted a bass and drummer who'd played before.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in a sense, they were just session musicians. Elvis hadn't used them in a band in a little while then, and I knew them from having a drink, and in fact, my manager at the time, his landlord was Bruce Thomas. So we just, you know, that was a very natural thing. They were very easy people for me to ask to do it.
Yeah.
But there was also two other people involved in that session. Kenny Craddock, who played for Lindisfarne and was Van Morrison's MD, and a guitar player called Steve Donnelly, who wasn't famous then, but is now on Suzanne Vega Records, and, you know, I mean, he's a monster guitar player.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty awesome band. Whether it was, in fact, the best way or the laziest way to present my material, I don't know. It certainly got me very confused with Elvis Costello for a little bit, which was probably very good on one level in that it pointed me into a genre of music that I was making, probably. But it was bad in another way, because after I didn't have a number one single on my first two records or whatever, some people, I had to do a lot to recover from being Elvis Costello, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Which has kind of worked out okay in the end, actually. Because now I think people realize that, you know, not to get out of the narrative that I see that we're running through, but, you know, obviously I'm kind of interested in making traditional folk music, and you know what I mean? So there's lots of other things that I do.
Now, you've shared the stage over the years with quite an impressive list of artists doing support slots or whatever. How much of a learning experience are they for you?
Well, I'm not sure. I know what you're saying. I mean, and it's true. I've done duets on stage with all kinds of people. Springsteen and John Prine and Iggy Pop and Lou Reed, and I don't really know how these things all happen in the end. But the bottom line is that musicians generally like to play with each other, and if you like the people involved, something good will probably happen. Are those learning experiences? Probably in very small, tedious, technical ways that I can't go into. I don't know. I mean, most of what those guys have to teach me, I probably learnt from seeing them sitting stage forward, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
You're one of the very few artists that have been invited to open for Springsteen. How was that experience?
Oh, that was great. That was really good. In the end, it was something of a strange disappointment, because he'd asked me originally to do the whole tour. And then they decided his show was running long, and the unions and the I don't know what all happened. But anyway, in the end, I only did a few shows because I was billed already for those shows. But that was a fantastic experience, as you might imagine. I mean, obviously a great songwriter, great bloke. We'd already did, or around then, we did a duet which appeared as the extra track on the re-release of Awake, my album.
Right.
Did a duet of Wreck on the Highway, and he's a great, great man, without a doubt.
That was his Tom Joad tour, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Are you always actively looking for new song ideas, or do they just evolve naturally as you go?
I suppose I am. I'm always open to offers. I'm always open to a telegram from something other.
Yeah.
To let me know to write something. What I do a lot, I realise, because I haven't been writing a lot of songs recently because I've been finishing off this album, and it's finished, and it was going to come out in July, and then Walt Disney folded the record company it was coming out on, and now it's on a major label, and I don't know when they're going to put it out. So it's like writing new songs is not at the very forefront of my mind right now.
Yeah.
What I do, I notice, and believe me, people... I mean, you're obviously used to talking to songwriters and stuff, but people, it's funny how you don't recognize, you try not to recognize the patterns of how you work, almost as if you knew how you worked, it would fail you. So when I say I've only just realized, like I just said, I only just realized that I walked around whistling a tune, you know what I mean? So I've only just realized that the way that I do things when I'm not writing songs is I just write down titles in my nice notebook, the one that looks the best.
Yeah.
And I just write down these titles, and then every now and then I kind of write in another one, and I look up the list, and I'm going, and I look at them, and literally, I can see a whole album there. There aren't any tunes, but I can just see the album. I can see the songs and what shape they're going to be and stuff. So it's a weird kind of visionary kind of thing, where I can just kind of extrapolate the whole song from just this little idea. And that's what I do.
How about on stage? Do you go on stage with a particular aim as to the effect that you want to leave on an audience? What impression do you hope to leave?
Well, I hope... That's a very interesting question. I hope to have them admire the sheer spontaneity of what I do. I don't like to have a set list, though sometimes you have to have one with a band because there's too much faffing around and instrument changing and capos to be put on, and people always get up, the band always get, I haven't got time to put my capo on and stuff like that. But when I'm on my own or playing with my friend Robert, which is my preferred mode of presenting a show, we never have a set list. I call every song to him. I try and do as many requests as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We really go for that, and that's what I like to do. Within that that spontaneous event of a gig, I think I like to play around with people's moods a lot. I like to make them think about awkward stuff, which is basically the same thing I'm trying to do in my lyrics, is I like to make people think about awkward stuff that they don't want to think about, and I like to make them wonder whether it's me singing the songs or a character, and I like to make them just think about their own lives in terms of the songs that I'm singing. And I mean, because I'm not telling anybody about anything. I'm not a didactic kind of a singer at all. I'm very, very rarely in my life have I ever protested, even though people often refer to me as a protester somehow. I mean, which always baffles me, really, because there are a couple of songs early on that might be angrier, but there's really very little finger pointing going on, and mostly I think my songs are about a kind of odd kind of bafflement at the world, and very romantic too. I mean, if those people do think of me like that, it's surprising, because to me they're very romantic. A lot of the songs are very romantic as well. So, so that's what I'm trying to do, I suppose, is just make people think twice. There's to me, a very, very important song in my career is that song, Cupid and Psycho on John Wesley Harding's New Deal, and then a Window Seat and Misfortune on Awake. Those are songs where I found a new way to write things I wanted to write. They're difficult and complicated songs to write, those elongated, kind of slightly incomprehensible, not in their meaning, but in the way they tie in together kind of mythical characters, or characters in a freaky situation, like the little kid who grows up on an airplane for his whole life, or the little kid. And that was really a new way that I found to write about stuff that I was very, I don't know why or how or what, but it happened. And and I've been able to mine that seam with real interest since then. That was a whole new way for me to write about things.
Looking at the album you put out a few years ago, the folk album, Traditional Arranged Jones.
Yeah.
I read where you quoted that album as being the first album you felt you really had to make.
Yeah, that's true.
Was there a reason you didn't make it in earlier years?
Yeah, because I didn't know his material.
Fair enough.
I mean, literally, Nick Jones was somebody whose stuff I discovered, 96.
Okay.
97, and me and Robert would listen to it going around, and when we were in a band, we'd bore other people with it, but we used to really like it. And I just felt, oh my God, these records aren't available. He may never play the guitar again, so they can't even be heard live. I must make an album of these songs. And I really wanted to do it. I really, really wanted to do it. And in a way, it was a different kind of compulsion from the just writing my own songs, which is what I do the rest of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I write my own songs and I make records. I have to do that on some level. But this was a different kind of have to. This is like, I'm doing this for the good of the world. Mm-hmm. I think the world will like this album. And you know what? It was actually a very successful and rewarding, not in terms of $1 million, but in terms of people's response to those songs. And now having those folk songs as part of the arsenal of my show that I can put on display for people, that's been a really rewarding experience for me. I mean, people love hearing Little Musgrave. Mm. They love hearing that song, and a gig will never go by without a request to sing that song. And that's really good for somebody like me, because it really makes me feel part of a tradition.
Yep.
When I really don't feel part of a tradition of music anywhere else. I feel totally apart from other kinds of music. I don't feel part of the singer-songwriters particularly. I'm not really welcome into the traditional folk clubs. Just because you make one album doesn't redeem you from using bass and drums the rest of the time. And all my I have many musician friends, of course, but they're all from different types of music. You know what I mean? It's like they're not all kind of like me, as often I'm sure that's the case. So that's the folk music was very good for me.
Your recent deal with Mammoth Records, how did that come about?
Very complicated story that I will cut very short by saying that when I was making Awake and then the Trad album, the guy who was head of Mammoth was working at a major label called Hollywood and wanted to sign me, couldn't, tried. I put out 2 albums in the meantime. He loved Awake. And then long and the short of it is he invited me to Nashville to make some demos, and I did, and they turned into the first 4 songs on the record, pretty much, because they were so good. We were so happy with them. And it was Humblebee and She's a Piece of Work off that album. And then we went back and cut 8 more, and that was the finished album. I mean, it was that simple.
I believe you were quite happy with the budget you had available to you there as well.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. That was fantastic. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but we were able to do everything I wanted. And the new album, which was made by me and this same guy with a different producer and a different band, I mean, it's called The Man with No Shadow. And I mean, the funny thing is, it was due out in July, and then Hollywood Records, the major label to whom I was originally signed, closed down Mammoth. So all the Mammoth artists are now on Hollywood wondering what's going to happen, which is exactly the situation of my record right now. So it could be that it comes out on Hollywood in the near future, or it could be that they don't, want to put it out because they already have their own. They already have, 12 records to put out this year. They don't need another 12 from Mammoth. So it could be best for me to stay there, or it could be best for me to leave. I don't know. The good news is that the record's finished, it's in a cover, it's ready to go. So it's not like it's got caught at an awkward point.
No.
It could have been much worse if it was not quite birthed, or if it had come out the week before this closure happened. That would have been very bad indeed. So with any luck, it'll be cared for there or elsewhere, and come out, before too long. In the meantime, if it's going to take some time to get that out, I like this album a lot, and people do like the album a lot, so I want to do what's right by the album, and that if that involves waiting for a little while to put it out, that's fine, because I've always got 35 other songs, and I'll just make one of those albums in the meantime and put it out quickly.
Could you conceivably just put it out yourself independently, even?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, and in fact, that might be the very way to go, because A, you make more money, B, because, as we all know, it costs nothing to make a CD. Itself costs nothing, and then you sell them for relatively a lot of money because they're so hiked up because they have to pay so many little percentages to songwriters and all that stuff. I don't have to do that. So, And also, that's good because it wouldn't interfere with the profile of my next album, which I do really want to look like my next album.
Talking about the budget you had with that, looking back at your previous albums, would there be any album there in particular you would maybe have felt it deserved a better budget?
Well, Awake, New Deal, and Trad R. Jones barely cost double figures, all three of them put together.
Wow.
Can I really say that they deserved a bigger budget? I suppose I would have liked a few more $1,000s floating around, but I was making these albums at home with a friend at his house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I love those, I love particularly New Deal, so it'd be very difficult for me to say that even though that record probably cost, $7,500 or something.
Yeah.
Trad R. Jones cost $2,000 total. So, it'd be difficult for me to say that I think John Wesley Harding's New Deal would have been any better with more money thrown at it. I don't believe that's true for a minute.
Yeah.
In fact, probably some of my records could have benefited from having less budget on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Name Above the Title, if I hadn't had however many dollars I had, I should think it could have possibly been a better record. So it's a funny way to think of that. But of course, there's always, if you had another $25,000, you could get, Bob Clearmountain to mix it, and, and I'm sure that would sound good too, but I don't really think of things in those terms.
Now, this record that Hollywood's sitting on at the moment, can you tell us a little bit about it? What musical direction we're heading there?
Well, have you heard Confessions?
Yep.
Great. Well, it's very much a development from Confessions. There are very few people and this includes, some journalists and stuff, because Mammoth had served some people the album already, because they had got as far as making the advances. And there are very few people who don't think that it's my best record. I entirely agree. I think it's by far my best record. It's my best sounding record, and it's my best edited record, and probably my best played record as well. Half it's produced by Julian Raymond, who kind of got a Grammy for the Chris Perez, and has worked with Cheap Trick and the Wallflowers, and, is a very savvy pop man indeed. And he got me together a really nice band with Michael Ward from the Wallflowers on lead guitar and Vinnie Colaiuta, Sting's drummer, on the drums, and we made six very, very cool songs at A&M in Hollywood. And then the other 6 songs were recorded with Eric Cupper at his studio in Connecticut, and playing on that is Dave Mattox of Fairport Convention on the drums, my favorite drummer, and also Gary Burnett on electric guitar, who produced the Confessions, because I love his guitar playing. So it's those 2 guys and me, and then there's one other track on the album which is a dream come true for me, which is me and Gavin Bryars, the classical composer, and he did an arrangement of a song of mine called Sussex Ghost Story, and that song occupies the center place on the album. It's basically his ensemble, me singing and playing the guitar. So it's a pretty ambitious album musically for me. It's not the most expensive album I've ever made. That would be one of the Sire albums, I would think. But it's easily the best sounding record I've ever made. The resources were used incredibly well and kept an incredibly good eye on them, and I'm very, very happy with it. If this album in some way gets screwed over, or I can't do, you know what I mean? I can't do something with it, I would be very, very sad, I can tell you, much more so than any other album. And I think I would think that was a mythical defeat for me, just because I think it's my best record, and what a shame that it would happen on my best record rather than one of the other ones. You know what I mean?
Tragic waste, yeah.
So it could be, but there's no reason for me to think that's going to be true. It's just, at the moment, it's just beyond the control of me writing good music and making a good album. I mean, those are considerations that where the situation is at now, they have no bearing. The album's good, everyone knows that. It's nothing to do with it. And so much of rock and roll isn't to do with the quality of the music. So, you know, my hope is that it'll just resolve and I can get on. On the other hand, and I don't mind which way it goes, on the other hand, there's a kind of exciting thing also about just making another album really quickly and getting that out and waiting for this one to kind of sift like sand through your hands and see where it lands. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. What I do know is that I'm really pleased with the record. People who've heard it like it, and I don't doubt that somebody's going to really enjoy putting it out.
Tremendous. And just before I let you go, where's the novel? Tell us all about that.
Oh, no.
No?
Well, it's, funnily enough, it's something I've been working on for a couple of years, and just what's happened recently with with The Man With No Shadow, I really thought I was kind of getting going, rehearsing a band, etc., at the beginning of June. Mm-hmm. Turns out not to be the case, because we're not sure when the album's coming out, so there's no point in getting a band all testosteroned up to go on the road. So what we're going to do so we decided to wait until we find out exactly what's happening. Obviously, it's the smartest thing to do. So I then looked at how much of this novel I had left to write, and I thought, right, that's when I'm going to finish that. So I'm hoping very much it'll be finished in 3 or 4 months. And basically what I could tell anybody who knows my stuff is that it's a novel of the song Misfortune on a Wake. Okay. That's exactly what it is.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to that. We'll look forward to the other album. Hopefully it gets out there. That'll be fantastic. And whatever else you got cooking up there too, we'll can't wait to hear that too.
Yeah, so great. Yes, it was very nice to talk to you. Thanks for talking. Now, when does this go on the air?
Probably the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Great. Well, can you mail us a copy?
I will do that for sure, absolutely.
And do email Kathy and let her know which albums you're into, because I can send you them from here. I mean, I have most of the CDs here.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
That's great, Wes. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Been a lot of fun speaking to you.
Yes, it was really nice. And we need to get my next album. See, if it was on Hollywood, it would have come out on Festival by default.
Yeah.
But what we need to do now is, if it's not on Hollywood, which I don't know yet, we need to find a nice Australian label for it.
A nice distributor down here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could probably recommend 1 or 2 to you, actually. Yep.
Good. Well, we might come back to you on that.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Wes. Take care.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.